Welcome to episode 23 of the Wild World podcast and our second interview episode.
Today, we are interviewing a YouTuber who creates in-depth, highly researched videos on wildlife, paleontology, and cryptozoology. He also does some occasional gaming live streams, and he has a podcast where he interviews other YouTubers, but today, we are interviewing him, Mr. Calvin The Carnotaurus. How are you today, sir?
Going good.
Good. Our first question is very important. What's with the name? Is a Carnotaurus your favorite dinosaur, for example?
Yeah, that's about where I got the idea for the name. I think it was mainly because my profile picture, it's of the character Ace the Carnotaurus from the TV show Dinosaur King, which I used to watch a lot when I was younger. So I think that might be where the influence came from.
And then my follow-up question is, why the name Star Naked?
I was actually talking to Gecko yesterday where I went to him, you're not going to believe what the second question they're going to ask me is. And that's where he said, they're like, what is it? What is it? To which I just went, actually, no, I'm just going to save this so that way you have to watch the full video in order to see it. Let's just say there was some verbal abuse. Yeah, so Gecko is working on a video game called The Time Forgotten. They made this weird model for it. They've dubbed the Naked. I think they made it more so as a joke. But then I remember Gecko and I think I sent him a screenshot of an article I found on this Brazilian kid who got disqualified from his science fair in high school because his science project for it was a cyborg chicken. To which that's where I think Gecko's entire response was just, the Terminator Naked. And then we just started screwing around in Blender, and he turned it into, as he put it, a neutron star, as it's now glowing. And then he's just singing a parody of the song Starman by, David Bowie?
That's why you're waiting in the sky.
Yeah. So, next minute, all I hear is him just singing, there's a star naked waiting in the sky. So as a way of annoying him, I made that my Twitter name.
That's pretty cool.
I think I even sent it to Shark Toz, a freaking bit of artwork Gecko did of it. His immediate response was just, Calvin, I'm gonna kill you.
So, if the Carnotaurus is your favorite dinosaur, would you say it's your favorite animal, or do you have a different favorite animal?
I'd say right now probably my favorite animal is either a jaguar or snow leopard.
Okay, so those are good choices.
Snow leopards because they just look so amazing. Jaguars because I think they're the most robust of the living cats. The only things that really surpass them are extinct cats like I think Smilodon populator, and I can't remember the other one's name. I think it's called something like Macaridus. It's the namesake of the saber-tooth family.
I was just going to ask a follow-up question. If you like those cats, would you say that you identify most with them, or is there an animal, like, if you had to say this is the animal that feels like me, what animal would you say feels like you?
I mean, I'm really more so of a sprinter than a long-distance runner, so I guess I identify with big cats in that sense. I also have a habit of sneaking up on people.
Okay. So you're a very cat-like person, is what you're saying.
Like, seriously, I think my dad went to me once when I did that to him, just, you've got to stop doing that. And I've terrified some of my friends at school doing that.
I also
You do it
sneak up on
intentionally,
people.
or are you just really good at being quiet?
Just really good at being quiet. I remember doing that to a year 11 girl, where she ended up walking into the room I was in, and I just say hi to her, and next minute it looked like she jumped out of her skin, and she just quickly collects herself and goes, hi, before walking off.
Do you have any interesting wildlife experiences? Do you have like a most interesting experience?
Well, around the same time, I visited the South Australian Museum, which is where I got all the images for that bad taxidermy video I did, that monstrosity. Mm-hmm. I also got to visit the Adelaide Zoo. Main experience from there, I got growled at by a lioness because they have a lion there. I think his name is like Mujambi or something, but he looks like Scar from The Lion King, the animated film. I'm not joking, he really looks like a live-action Scar. And then you have the lioness he's with, who looks like she probably weighs like twice his size. And I remember like leaning in to get a photo, and the next minute she just looks at me and lets out a growl. You can imagine how quickly my heart rate shot up and how quickly I stood back.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with a lion.
I think I actually have a photo on my phone. It was originally on my computer, but some stuff happened with my computer recently, so a lot of files got deleted. But there's a couple photos I have of the lioness where you can actually see the shadow of the hat I was wearing on the lioness's face. That's how far I leaned in to get a photo. Not the best photo quality, but you gotta remember, I'm a teenage boy. I'm just happy to get a photo of a lion that close.
I presume there was glass in between, right? Or no?
There was this, like, a metal mesh in between, and then this wooden barrier a meter away from the mesh.
Oh,
He was
okay.
just sticking his hand through the mesh trying to get his hand into the enclosure.
I don't think you could even stick your hand through the mesh if you wanted to, and it's like 5-6 meters tall, so you couldn't exactly jump it, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, and hopefully the lion can't jump it either.
It's also angled inwards at the top, so it couldn't exactly like climb up it properly.
Fair enough.
You never know.
Yeah, I guess that was that tiger in San Francisco. They were like, oh, this tiger would never get out of here until it did. So,
Raggy.
famous last words. You know that taxidermy video?
Yeah?
There's one where there's like a weird ape thing. A gecko's like, what is that? And there's just like silence, and then you just go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you ever find out what that ape was?
I don't even know. It's just something I found and something I photographed. But I love his description of it looks like a mythical creature. I think I said it in the video. My favorite one is the cheetah that I photographed in there.
The angry cheetah?
Because I got a stare like that from a year 11 girl. I just see her looking across the room at me with this intense stare. She's done it on several occasions to the point I was thinking of yelling at her at one point, you want to go on a date or something? Stop staring.
Oh
Although,
my.
probably wouldn't do that because I could already imagine getting told off by the teacher.
Yeah. I like how I think maybe it was you or maybe it was Gecko. It was like it has the look of I know what you did. I've wanted to
Yes.
like screen grab that and then one day I'm gonna send it to you out of the blue.
I remember I even
Uh,
showed it to one of my friends at the school going, hey, it looks like this year 11 girl. He immediately started laughing as soon as he saw the resemblance. To the point that we were just joking, calling it her name.
hmm.
And I think someone did actually send me it on Discord later with the caption, I know what you've done. I remember there was quite a few freaky looking taxidermies at that freaking
They were
museum.
all so bad. I'm just like shocked at how bad they were. Well, a few of them
I
were
remember,
okay, but
I remember with the polar bear in particular, while I was editing the video, I had to walk away several times because I was laughing so hard at Gecko's reaction. I'm not joking, I just hear him go, Christ almighty, and start losing it. And all I could really do was just walk away, trying to hold in my laughter.
pretty
Yeah, like
crazy.
some museums just don't have good taxidermies or displays. Like, Thomas, do you remember that place we went that had that thing? It was like, this is what dinosaurs would look like if.
You've probably seen this, Calvin. Have you ever seen that speculative evolution of a dinosaur that's like a biped humanoid?
The dinosauroid. I know someone who had that as their profile picture.
Yeah, I remember when we walked into the museum, we walked around the corner, we both saw it, and we just both started laughing. Like, what the hell is that supposed to mean?
Meanwhile, with me, I'm just sat back thinking, like, Jesus Christ, what were they smoking when they thought of this?
Yeah, I just don't get that at all. Like, what I don't
That's
know.
because
I don't
having
know
two
what that's
legs
supposed to
is the
be.
pinnacle of evolution. If you have two legs, you've made it.
Okay, like a theropod, like a bird that lives today. Why'd they have to make that weird reptile man?
I don't make the rules, man.
They do, apparently.
I see it as good meme material, though.
Yeah. Because I remember you sent me like like 30 taxidermy pictures that one night.
Oh,
So it
yeah.
seemed appropriate that you found like the museum of bad taxidermy.
I remember also, hang on, sorry, Mika, to cut you off, but I think I sent Thomas once a article about Bigfoot from Touchpod Zoology.
This is a family show.
I was just gonna say, I once pulled that up during a lesson at school, and I was going to show the teacher it, but
Oh
before the
no.
teacher could see it, this other girl in my class saw it. Her face immediately became one of just confusion and disgust. But I think my favourite reaction was from the teacher himself, where he just goes, Oh, typical teenage boy behavior.
You said you pulled it up for a second. I thought you were about to say I did a presentation on it. I was like, oh dear God, no.
No, I'm not that crazy. I might have gotten a bit of a reputation for being crazy at the school, but trust me, I'm not that crazy. Although I will note, I've looked that article up so many times on my school laptop, it's now actually auto-saved. So whenever I type in Bigfoot, it pops in the URL.
This is a red flag behavior. This is, because they can see like what you search at school.
Well, this teacher already knows.
Do you mind if I go to a new
Yeah,
question?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
sorry.
So, you've been talking a lot about like taxidermy, which means you've seen a lot of dead animals. And you went to the zoo and you saw a animal at the zoo. I was wondering if there's an animal that you'd most like to see in the wild, like a live animal in its natural habitat. Do you have a dream creature that you'd like to see?
I think for me, it would probably actually be three: mountain lions, grey wolves, and grizzly bears in North America.
Oh, sounds like you're living.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know where you live. I guess I shouldn't presume, but you should move if you want to see those.
I live in Australia, but I don't know why. There's just something I find very majestic about some of the American predators. I mean,
Yeah, you guys don't have a lot of good predators.
I have a book on grizzlies that I was reading the other day, and I also have one on cougars by the same author. The big cat kind of cougar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't say snow leopard and jaguar, if they're your favorites.
I actually do have a book on jaguars, and I will admit I would like to actually see them in the wild as well.
Mm,
But I don't know why. I just find there to be something a bit more majestic about American wildlife.
fair
Well,
enough.
jaguars, you
Have
can
you?
find them in America.
True.
So what you
True.
need to do is do a big trip and start like north and go south. Start in Canada, go through Montana and stuff, and then at the end up in Texas and look for a jaguar.
Yeah. I think I heard something though saying you gotta get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning to go see the grizzlies at Yellowstone.
If that was me, I'd probably just stay awake all night.
Well, you can go to the place where the grizzlies are just catching fish, and like they don't even care because they're eating so much fish, and you can see them any day or any time of day during the salmon season in Alaska, I think.
Yeah. Mountain lions would probably be the hardest to see out of the three because they're just so incredibly elusive.
Yeah.
I've seen mountain lion. Well, we've both seen them in enclosures, and even in enclosures, they were really hard to see.
Yeah.
They're so good at hiding.
Wait, I
So,
remember with the Adelaide Zoo, they have three species of cat there. They have
hmm
lion, serval, and tiger. Sumatran tiger to be specific. And I think they said it's a mother and then three cubs. Although they're all about around the same size, so I'd say those cubs aren't exactly cubs anymore.
okay.
But I remember, right? I hear that there's four tigers in total. I go to the enclosure. I get a photograph of one, two, three. Where's the fourth one? I finally stop staring through the lens of my phone camera, and then I look off to my side and I see 2 meters away from me, there's one of the tigers laying like right next to me near the glass. Again, my heart rate shot up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Cats
heard
are
someone
so
say the only
sneaky.
way to see a mountain lion in the wild is for it to be too late. Basically, like the mountain lion can always see you, but if you see it, then that's bad. It's like it wants you to see it and it's about to kill you, basically. So I think for you to see a mountain lion in the wild, you've got to be very strategic. Maybe like carry around a bunch of meat and and
You
then
have to be
run really
willing.
fast. Well, maybe you
I
have
thought
like a little car that you can speed away in right as it comes out.
just drive around a little moped with a load of stakes on your back and hope for the
Yeah,
best.
could work out for you.
It reminds me of this hunting game I've played with Gecko recently, The Hunter, Call of the Wild. And I remember in there we were trying to get a mountain lion because they're so extremely hard to get. The amount of times we just had to like, okay, we're following the tracks, following. Where'd the tracks go? Painful. So to the point that I think I said to him once, like, I'd rather just try hunting these things in real life because it'd probably be easier.
Yeah,
Who
maybe. Let us
knows?
know.
Admittedly, I'd probably get in trouble depending on which state I'm in.
Oh, you mean to hunt
Because,
to kill?
well, what
So
else am
there's
I
a
doing when I'm
season.
hunting it?
I thought you meant hunt like, just to see. There is a
With a
hunting
camera.
season for mountain lions. So yeah, you could do that, but then you can get close to it. I think it would be just as hard to hunt for one to kill as it would be to find one alive and look at it.
Mm,
Especially during the
true.
hunting season, they're probably more sparse. They're like hiding.
Yeah, I think I saw something saying they reckon there was like a couple. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think they said they reckon there was like a few 100,000 mountain lions, and now they're down to like I think 20 or 30,000.
Hmm.
So the incredibly scarce creature is now a whole lot more scarce.
Yeah.
I've read the opposite that the mountain lions are one of the most successful predators in America. I mean, their numbers aren't like super high, but they're being really adaptable and they're spreading across the continent.
Mm,
I guess the book I was reading was an argument for if they should or should not be hunted, and it's like some people think that they're so abundant they can be hunted. He wasn't sure if that was true because even though they're abundant, they're like they can't recover from the hunting. So it's the jury's out, I suppose.
mm. I remember I remember seeing a controversy at one point on Twitter where they were bloody because I think it's Colorado. They have a mass. No, it wasn't Colorado. I think it was Utah. They have a massive problem with coyotes there. With them just being in massive plague numbers. I think I saw one popular YouTuber, Edge Paleontology. I think his entire thing was just release wolves into Utah. To which I think then someone made a lengthy thread about it, responding to Edge saying that they can't release wolves because a bunch of like different legislation relating to wolves in Utah. To point that the release wolves into Utah to solve coyotes is not an argument. So that's why I've mainly been seeing people just say shoot them, and I think personally I agree with that. I saw someone rebuttal against that by saying of how apparently when you shoot them, they somehow become more numerous because then there's more resources for the surviving coyotes. But I find that sort of silly considering how quickly humans with far less advanced firearms have managed to wipe out very similar predators like the thylacine. Like last time I checked, the thylacine now isn't everywhere in Tasmania because we shot a couple. It's
Hmm.
gone.
I,
Unless you believe the whole thing of it still being alive.
Do you
do you
believe?
believe it's still alive?
I don't know. I have not researched that topic.
Really? I feel okay. I don't know why. I thought you were like really into that.
I'm also into Australian big cats, as you'd probably be aware.
Hmm.
But I know someone who is working on a thylacine video. They've been working on it
Nature
since I think
enjoyer.
March. Yeah, nature.
Wow.
I think more on the politically correct side. I made the joke to him once of like, was he making this thing autistically leveled of detail? Because that's one term I've heard thrown around for heavily detailed videos. To which that's where he goes to me, "Oh, I'm actually diagnosed with autism." To which I think I just replied, going, "Oh, great! Of course, I just had to say it right then."
Yeah.
Full
Does it come like this
understanding, nothing
weird?
malicious. Yeah, that gave me a laugh.
It's come like this odd. Um, sometimes it's used as an insult. Sometimes it's like not even. It's like people say it about themselves when they're not autistic. It's like I'm gonna do this to autistic levels, which I don't know.
Yeah, I've
Maybe it's
used that
not the
myself.
best thing to
I've used
say.
that
I don't know.
myself, but I have said to people, I think like, yeah, that's thrown around a little too much. Sometimes it feels, yeah, it just seems a bit weird when it's thrown around so often.
Yeah. Plus, I really like when things are like super deep dives. So I say go for it.
Yeah.
But um,
Oh well. I mean, now you gotta wait to see what he ends up coming up with when it comes to his file scene video. He is a bit more on the believer side from memory, but
but you were planning on making a thylacine video, right?
I'd like to at some point. Just but yeah, it's not a major priority. I think I'll wait for his video to come out, and then maybe I'll give my own analysis plus my own little
Okay.
bit of research. Because for me, I don't know why, but it seems sort of like with Bigfoot in a way. There's just so much stuff. Like seriously, you just punch in Bigfoot on Amazon, and you're just gonna get like 50 different books from like 20 different authors. I actually came across
Yeah.
someone who made an entire book series of Bigfoot sightings from every state in the US, plus
Every
Australia.
state?
Yeah, every state.
Wow.
Alongside, I think, also Australia and New Zealand, because, stuff like the Yowie. For me, it's like, yeah, I don't feel the need to touch Bigfoot because there's just so much stuff, and I can already imagine there'd be a lot of conflicting things there. To the point, it just, yeah. Thylacine feels like a miniature version of that because I type in Tasmanian tiger or Thylacine, and next minute I find like a dozen different cryptozoology books, and those are just the books alone. You then also have all the different websites, blogs, and documentaries. To the point, it's just like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you people?
They're believers, man.
It
If
isn't
someone
one
was
book
going to
enough.
give you the sorry, if someone was going to give you the exclusive, they could say they were like, "I have evidence that Bigfoot exists, and I have evidence that the thylacine is still around." And they said, "I'll take you to the evidence. Which one would you choose? You can only choose one. You could be the person to break the story, you know."
I think I'd go for Bigfoot because it would be a bit more newsworthy.
So you want the fame. That's
But they
fair.
always say for the thylacine, they always say if you find it, keep your mouth shut and don't tell anyone because it'll get hunted straight away.
True.
I
I guess
think
they don't
that,
care.
yeah. I mean, hey, I think there's been quite a few cases of people shooting at big cats in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Should we
Have they
move
had
on
to
to
take
them?
one?
most of it, I think, usually goes the same way of they try shooting it, but it manages to disappear.
Yeah.
Bit of a weird
Uh,
trend to the point that some people do consider that big cats in Australia might be a paranormal sort of phenomenon.
Yeah.
I have heard because in Britain and Australia, we like the term ABCs for alien big cats, as in not from
Yeah.
outer space, but from different areas. But there are some people who believe they're actually aliens.
I remember I wrote up a mathematical investigation on big cats in Australia and America, and I think I actually had to clarify in there saying alien big cat means foreign, not from outer space.
Should we go into Australian big cats more? I guess your chosen
Oh, sure.
topic.
So
Um,
Yeah,
that's your area of expertise, right? What would you say is the big cats in
I'd
Australia?
definitely say it's definitely one of my main interests. To the point that I think Gecko went to me at one point, like, what is wrong with you? Because of the amount of research I've done on this subject. But I have a massive, very extensive library of books, and a lot of those books are on cats, both of the cryptozoological kind and of the regular zoological kind. So
mhm.
I have a good amount of knowledge on both subjects already, and if I don't, I can always either read through one of the books that I've not read a chapter or two on, or just reread what I've already read. But with one of the investigation, or one of the assignments I did, it was a mathematical investigation where I looked at the statistics of sightings. Because one of the books I have on big cats in Australia has an appendix of, I think it's 79 sightings. Uh, so I went through all those sightings and I broke them down and actually looked at different characteristics of the sightings. So while I do plan to make this its own video, I think I will just pull up some of the details so you can actually get an idea of what I ended up finding. Okay, so um,
This is this is cool, but wow, the effort. I just feel the amount of effort that went into this.
this there's 5 spreadsheets here, by the way. This is just one.
Holy moly!
So here we have the Australian one. Well, one of the Australian ones. Then we have was the simplified version in all its multicolored glory. NA. So this is North American East, because the main source I was using, Mysterious America by Lauren Coleman, and it had the sightings split up into eastern and western sightings. So this is for the
Okay.
eastern side of the US and North America as a whole. Here's west, a lot less sightings, by the way. And then we have combined, where we have this monstrosity of a pie chart. And I think nearly 150 sightings.
Wow.
So,
This is good
where.
data.
Yeah. So, here we go with this one. So, as you can. Where is it? Percent value of ABC reports by state in Australia, 1964 to 2007. That's the years of the sightings. So, as you can see, the majority was New South Wales at 48%. Meanwhile, South Australia only had literally one sighting, so I think it's actually less than 1%. Queensland, I don't know if you can read that. That's 10%. Western Australia, 9%, and in Victoria, 32%. That sort of aligns with what I've heard beforehand about these things, because from what I know, New South Wales and Victoria are the main places in terms of big cat sightings in Australia. You then have also the percent value of colour types of ABCs in Australia. So we have Black Panther, so basically just I lumped in anything that was black. Puma, so that's just anything that is of the general Puma colour. Not described, fairly obvious. Miscellaneous, basically just anything random that didn't fit into any of the other categories. And then Black Cougar, which is black coloration but with a white underbelly or white chest. Because I remember there was a blog article I read from Carl Schuker where he went over black cougars and could they be behind alien big cat sightings. And he said that one of the problems is that the big cats reported in Australia, North America, and Britain, and other countries as well, are all black in color. You never see anything of a white underbelly or white chest area or anything like that, which against the back body would actually stick out. All right, it would be very hard not to notice. On from here, you then have the physical descriptions of ABCs in Australia. So compared to a known animal, so that'd be like they might compare it to a kangaroo, a dog, a feral cat. Possessed a mane, because some of the sightings either hinted at that or just outright stated this thing had a mane. One trait described, so that would only be like, say, they might describe the head, but nothing else. General body described, so that was 2 traits or more of the body described. So they might describe the head or tail, body or tail, or the body and head. I will note, as far as like not described is concerned, this one, which makes up 44%. When it came to that, I noticed a lot of the sightings were very vague and open to interpretation, where they'd say it was a big cat or a large cat. And for me, it's like, whilst most people on face value will go, oh, they must mean like a tiger or a jaguar or a black panther, right? Just something like that. The problem with that is that, well, they just say a big cat, right? And you could say big cat in relation to just a exceptionally large domestic cat.
House cat, yeah.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that if we go through this monstrosity of a spreadsheet, right, we go at the very top one, 2005 in Victoria, Gippsland, time of day 5 p.m, color black, size 2 meters and 30 to 40 kilos in weight, build not described. And then we scroll to notes, confirmed feral cat.
That's the famous Kurt Angle cat.
Yeah. The world record breaker. So, yeah, you could look and say that if they say it's a big cat, then, oh, that must mean it's, a puma or something, but big doesn't necessarily mean it's of the Panthera lineage. It just means it was of great size. if they describe it further in saying it had like a head of a mountain lion, or it was like it had a bulky build like a jaguar, then I start to go like, okay, maybe that is actually some sort of big cat species. Because I will note that, like with the big cats in Australia, um, big cats, well, feral cats, I mean, have a very delicate build. And not just that, but I noticed they also have this far more like rectangular shape in their profile when you look at their body. Meanwhile, you look at a regular, or you look at a leopard, they have a fair more slender body. But if we just look it up, why did I type in Bigfoot?
It's muscle
Leopard.
memory now.
Yes, looking up the article. Okay, so can my computer pull this up? Right, so you look at this leopard, it's got a very lean build. Like, look at the way the stomach sort of curves up towards the back legs. And also just the very robust and powerful build of it. And the way the tail curls up. Then if we Google, like, feral cat, like, you notice it's got a bit more of a flat stomach. And it has a bit more of a rectangular build. And the tail, while it does curl up, it's not as prominent as what you see in some leopards.
Right. So you put out a pretty detailed video about feral cats being an explanation to the whole big cat phenomenon and some of your criticisms.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess we'll link the video below and everything, so people should go watch the full thing. But for someone who would say to you, like, oh, well, look at the Kurt Angle cat, it was so big, couldn't they all just be misidentified big feral cats? Do you have any retorts to that?
Well, one of the things I think is worth noting is another thing I said in that video. And that was that there has been a lot of reported livestock killings attributed to the cats in Australia. And the thing is that some of these animals are as big as horses and show signs of an actual cat kill. And the thing is that really, in a way, a feral cat is sort of like a miniature mountain lion. Is it in it having a fairly like small skull, but it's a lot more delicate than a mountain lion's. So it's like, what do you think really is going to take down a horse? A large feral cat or more average-sized mountain lion, or even say a leopard or jaguar? Those would be a lot better than a far more delicately built feral cat, even one as big as Kurt Angle's cat. And it also begs the question, right, as I think you'd know from all your How Big videos, of what are the chances of there being these exceptionally large animals? Right? Because, well, I think they reckon there could be as many as 10 or 12 million feral cats roaming Australia, or as little as like 1 to 3 million. As far as I understand, those might be outdated estimates, feel free to correct me. But what's worth noting there is it's like, okay, out of those several million cats, how many are actually that big? Because I remember there was this one guy, he was pretty, I saw him a lot around on YouTube, although I think he's recently changed his channel name and he's gotten rid of a lot of these videos. He also used to be known on Twitter as Australian Feral Mega Cats. That was also what his channel name was called before I think he changed it to something like Eclectic Explorations. But one of the main things he had on there was he would upload these videos with photos or videos that people have filmed of these feral cats, and it would always be something like, giant feral cat, 6.6 kilograms, it's a mini leopard. But the thing is like, when you look at the sort of size range, like one of the books I have, by, I think his name's Jose Castello, on felids and hyenas of the world, they list in there the sort of weight range you can expect from feral domestics. And I think he said the largest they get, according to him, is 8 kilos. So it's like 8 kilos and below, that's just your typical feral. Right? It's
Yeah.
not like some of the exceptional large animals you'll get out there, like Kurt Angle's cat, which he reckoned was like 30 to 40 kilo.
Yeah.
Those ones that are like 15 kilo plus, those appear to be extremely rare. I think Nature Enjoyer, he said he even searched around and he could only find like one report of one that was 13 kilo. So
And
it is then one of those things where you gotta look and it's like, well, how common are those?
yeah, I was just like, look, after I watched your video, I just did a very brief search of like average leopard sizes, and I saw like somewhere between 50 to 90 kilos. I think that's on Britannica. I don't know how accurate that is, but if let's say that's roughly correct, 6.6 kilos isn't really a leopard, even a
Mm.
mini leopard. Like that's a bit of a push.
Yeah, like I do believe that some of the feral cats could actually be behind sightings. Like the main reason I haven't really been uploading is because I'm off at boarding school. So I'm actually like, I'm not at my computer. I'm off actually living at a boarding house, off attending school. I've been trying to
Cool.
work on videos using the school laptops, but I've mostly been focused on actual school work.
Sure.
But I think the staff did say that if I wanted to, I could take some of my assignments and actually turn them into videos, which I do plan to do at some point. But there is a lot of stray and feral cats around this boarding house. I think also the year 11 girl I mentioned earlier who was staring at me, I think she's also the neighbor at the boarding house. She lives just across the street, and her family has several cats. I remember once when I walked past there, I heard a cat fight break out, and I see her come out telling her cat's off. All right, but I think she mainly has these like ginger cats. But there's been this one feral I've seen around the place, or one stray, where it's got these patches of ginger, but the main body is black. Right, it's mainly black, and then you have like these little itty bitty patches of ginger. I think I even got a video of it, so I could probably send you that so you can get an idea of what I'm describing.
Mhm.
But one of the sightings I did find in that book for my math investigation actually listed off the description in terms of color as being black with patches of ginger. And I don't think you really get that with leopards. I mean, of course, you can sometimes see the spots on black leopards and jaguars, and they do sort of have a bit of a golden like tinge to them. But for me, it's like the patches of ginger. That's like saying actual like little blotches around the animal. So for me, it's like, yeah, you could probably write that one off as a feral. Of
Right.
course, it should also be noted that even though we do have access to the internet, so you can freely Google stuff like how big is a T Rex or the difference between a jaguar and a leopard, most people don't do that. So as soon as they see like one of these animals quickly like just skim by, what's the first thing that's going to come to mind? Oh my god, it's a big cat. And then from there, the brain morphs it into a leopard, puma, jaguar, whatever.
Yeah.
But with some of the sightings where they actually compare them to a known animal, like they say it was a dingo, or like they compare it to a dingo in terms of like its stride or something, it's a bit hard to write that off as just a large dog if they're comparing it to an actual dog. And the same goes when I see them compare them to a feral cat, because it's like, on top of that, some of these people are hunters, so they're familiar with the wildlife in the area. So they would have seen plenty of ferals. So it's like, on one hand, I do see feral cats being a good reason for why there could be a lot of sightings of big cats in Australia. But there are certain times where you do got to look at some of the sightings, and it's like I don't really think you can write this off as a feral.
Yeah, I guess for me, like I always try and be sort of skeptical. So in a way, I could almost be like, well, people overestimate and everything. But then there's other things I can't really explain away. Like you said, some of the killings, or like some of
Mm.
the footprints. Like, wasn't it in your video that you said they found where was it, the kangaroo? What was it called? I wrote it
Kangaroo
down.
Valley panther.
Yeah, size of a Bengal tiger. Is that correct? The
Uh,
footprint, I mean.
I think there was footprints recorded of it, but I think it was the Emerville panther that had footprint casts the size of a Bengal tiger.
Oh, sorry. But yeah,
But either way,
that
it's like, yeah, it's a bit hard to write that off as just a feral.
I have a question about your compiled data where you showed that New South Wales is the most popular place to have a sighting. I'm wondering if you
Yeah.
think it could have to do with the populations of people where they are, as well as where tourists go. Like, do you think that the cats live in those areas, Victoria and New South Wales, or do you think that's where they're spotted? Like, is it possible they're all over?
Well, one of the things I think is worth noting is when you look at like population graph of Australia, I think it's in the 90s, like 90 something percent. I think it's actually like 95% of Australia lives on the east in places like New South Wales, Queensland, and Victoria. Those are the most populated states.
Yeah, that's why I asked
Um,
that, because that's where the people are, right?
yeah, like I think there's nearly 9 million people in New South Wales. Meanwhile, in South Australia, by comparison, there's I don't think even 2 million. That's a bit of a difference between those two states, yet they both border each other. But the other thing that's worth noting in terms of like why you see so many people living on that side is just look at the terrain. Like South Australia, it's mainly desert. The really only habitable parts, the main like actual proper like very habitable parts for people, unless you want to live out in a desert in like 40 to 50 degrees Celsius weather conditions, is down south in places like Adelaide and the surrounding towns like Gawler. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think also when it comes to big cat sightings, those have been the main places they're reported. Whenever you do get South Australian sightings, they're down south. And it's like when you look at it, it's far more lush and green habitat. Like you look at Western Australia as well and the Northern Territory. I don't think there's really many big cat reports in the Northern Territory, if any, because that place is just a barren wasteland also. Really, I think the most noble thing there is they have Darwin and Alice Springs. Darwin, from what I know, is not a great place to visit. Alice Springs, it has the highest crime rate out of any place in Australia. To the point, it even beats out some countries on the crime index. But I think also too, again with Western Australia, the sightings are more in these lusher parts of the state where they're more southern, like around the Cording region. I think that is a bit more lush. And the thing is, when you then look at Victoria and New South Wales, they're extremely lush. There's a lot of forests and stuff. So there's a lot of cover for big cats, which are ambush predators. They don't like to run down stuff for a long time. I think the longest recorded distance you regularly get for big cats is with cheetahs at 2 to 500 meters. But most cats, like lions, like I think one thing I read when it comes to tigers is that with the deer species that tigers prey on, they're comfortable grazing within 100 meters of a tiger because they know the tiger can't get them from that distance. The tiger's got to close into at least like 30 meters.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
So the thing is that well, the tiger needs cover. So look at all those far more lush areas, like in New South Wales and Victoria, and then even the more southern parts of South Australia. It's like, well, there's a lot of cover there for a big cat, and not just that, but if I remember correctly, also in places like Victoria, and I think also Queensland, in the southern parts of Queensland, you have deer, and big cats do like deer because they are an invasive animal in the country. Heck, I think there was even an argument I heard against big cats, and that's because of how common deer are as invasive species in Australia. It's a wonder we don't get even more big cat sightings because, well, if the population of the prey increases, so should the predator. But at the same time, I think it's worth knowing they also have competition in the form of humans and dingoes, or at least northern parts of those states, because you're not allowed to get dingoes south of the dog fence. So I think a lot of Victoria doesn't have dingoes, if any.
So you think that the cats live where they're spotted? It's not just an artifact of the where the people are to spot them, correct?
I, I feel like it is a bit of a mixture where it is both the fact there is a massive population, so it's like there are more eyes out, and there's a lot of like these little itty bitty towns, right? Because with Australia, you have like these very major cities, so that's like Perth, Darwin, Adelaide, right? And then maybe some like smaller little towns around that basically function as miniature cities, and then you have all these like very small outback rural towns, like what's it called, Emmaville? Like you should pull up Emmaville on Google Maps. There's nothing there. But the thing is that with those places, right, because there's a much higher population, that means you have a lot more of these little towns scattered out. And if I'm correctly, when it comes to big cats in Australia, those are where you get most of the sightings. These little small outback rural towns, just dotted across the state. So, but for me, it's like not only is it just the population, because I did actually notice a correlation with my data in that there were more big cat sightings depending on the population. So I think South Australia had the lowest, and it also has the lowest population out of all the states listed. And then it followed the same for all the other states, with New South Wales being the most populated, having the most sightings. But again, also, there's a lot of prime habitat there for big cats. So it's like prime habitat plus massive population equals a lot of sightings. Like if you have a lot of people living in alligator territory in Florida, you're obviously going to get a lot of not big cat sightings, alligator sightings in Florida.
So, from this, it sounds like that you think it is plausible that there are these big cats in some of these areas. Do you have any ideas on how or why they're there?
In all honesty, I'd say the origin of the big cats is probably a little confusing. Like you have the US Airmen theory, which has been debunked since I think at least the 80s, but it's still brought up because a lot of people still think it's valid. But for me, I think I agree most with Michael Williams, I think his name is. He is one of Australia's leading experts on this subject. With him, I think he's theorized that it's private zoos and circus accidents in the 1800s and early 1900s. And I think I agree with that the most. You do have testimonies of people from World War II claiming that there were big cats dumped in the bush. But from what I know, pretty much the only thing when it comes to the US Airmen theory that backs it up is just that there are those testimonies. Like there was one, I can't remember her name, but she came forth claiming she witnessed the dumping of a puma who had a litter of cubs with her as well. And then some old guy who I think was a World War II veteran actually came along and actually said that he was there as well and actually knew her by name. And I think also around the same time there was that dumping, there was a sighting of a big cat roaming Australia. It was a puma, and it had a chain around his neck, apparently. So you could interpret that as, yeah, some of them were dumped there. But beyond that testimony, Michael Williams and other researchers haven't actually found any actual evidence, like documentations, saying that there were big cats. Other than them stating in their book, Australian Big Cats and a Natural History of Panthers, that they read through several different articles on the subject of military mascots in Australia, and they couldn't find anything on big cats. So it's a little hard to say that these things were just dumped there. Even then, I find it actually sort of silly to say that they were dumped there, because the main story for all those sorts of reports is just that, they had to get rid of them because for some reason the sergeant or whoever was in charge said, you must get rid of them. But they couldn't kill them because they were so attached, so they just dumped them in the bush. For me, it's like, why wouldn't you just take it to a zoo or a sanctuary? Like, send it off there, so that way you could actually see it after the war. Like, I'm pretty sure, what's his name? Wojtek, that Russian bear?
The bear,
No,
yeah.
Polish bear. Yeah, didn't he end up living in a zoo for the rest of his life?
Yeah, in Scotland, I think.
Yeah, they didn't just like dump him there, and I think you even said in your video you did on him, or it might have been a different video I watched, that veterans who had actually served alongside Wojtek would actually come and see him at the zoo.
Yeah,
right?
they did.
So they could actually like come and see him afterwards. So I don't see why there wouldn't be cases on record of, say, US servicemen who've come to Australia, they decide they go get rid of the cat for some reason. Why not just take it to like Melbourne, Adelaide, or Brisbane Zoo?
There's also like the logistics. Like, did they take it all the way from the United States to Australia as a cub and then be like, don't know how to get it back now?
Well, that's the other thing I find sort of silly, because it's like, hang on, you brought this thing into the country.
Yeah.
Because admittedly, you hear people say it was Australian soldiers, but a lot of the stuff I hear is say it's US soldiers. To the point it could actually be both. Right? Because I hear like two versions where it's like US soldiers who came here, they brought black leopards and pumas, and then they just started to dump them here for some reason. And then you have the Australian ones where it's like they brought them from Asia when they were fighting the Japanese, and then they just decided to dump them here for some reason. But for me, it is again like, why not just take it to a zoo? And also, like, why not? How do you even get it into the country in the first place?
Yeah.
Do you think that most people in Australia believe in these big cats being there, or do you think it's just sort of a niche, like only weird people believe it, only weird people know about it and care?
I think a lot of people are aware about it because I actually found about this. I found out about this stuff. I remember hearing when I was like 10, my dad talk about it. And then the main one that got me interested was I watched a YouTube video on the British cats by the channel Bedtime Stories. It's a pretty good video. If you want to look it up, it's called Predators on the Moors. And then I remember after watching it, like the second or third time, he says to me of how there are big cats that have been reported here, and that's what got me interested. But the thing is that you've had like literal thousands of sightings reported, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually very well known. And not just that, but it's also worth noting that the big cats in Australia actually make for pretty good news material because you can actually find a lot of news reports on this sort of stuff, whether it be sightings or just opinion piece articles of like, why is this thing still popular? Although, in the same time as saying that, whenever I've brought it up with people at my school, most of them just seem to go like, what? You should have seen my English teacher's reaction. He immediately made the comparison to UFOs. Admittedly, I remember there was actually one case where the assistant principal, I think it is, he ended up telling me of how he's heard of the big cat stuff, and he actually had like a box of files on records of his hometown where they actually had a lot of like reported stuff of big cats. He did actually try and find it for me. Sadly, I think he said he's either like misplaced it so he has no clue where it is, or he's just gone rid of it. But he did try finding it for me. I remember him actually saying there was one pretty funny story where there was like a railway that went through the town, but it was deactivated. Then when the news spread of the panther roaming around the place, a bunch of teenage boys, high school boys, got a flatbed cart with a little motor on it, and they stuck a couch on the cart, and then they just started going around the town on this railway, deactivated railway, looking for the panther. I think he said later they actually got caught because there was like a train crossing where it overlapped with a road, and they accidentally set off the crossing alarm. So then the police was had to like, hang on, this thing's deactivated. Why is it going off? And then they found these teenage boys just roaming around on a flatbed cart, looking for the panther. I think one of my books actually has a photo of these two investigators who went out searching for big cats. Both of them have a beer in their hands. Proper Australians.
Just having a good time.
Yeah,
Would you ever go out looking for them?
No, not yet, but I'd like to. I'm thinking of mainly going to Victoria Gippsland if I were to do that, because from what I know, that is a hotspot for it. There's also Tarnagulla. Those are the two main hotspots. One thing I will also note I was also just going to say on the origins of big cats, and I do actually plan to do something on this at some point. There's also been Fire Like a Leo proposed. That Fire Like a Leo is still alive.
Yeah.
Sort of like, when you have giant 30 to 40 plus foot long shark sightings, everyone cries Megalodon. I think I actually did it as a little analysis for a school project, and I concluded most likely not the case, and I also noticed this in the statistical breakdown I did. There were only I think 3 or 4 sightings that describe marsupial traits, but it's really only 3 in terms of actual physical stuff, because I noticed with the 4th one, they listed seeing a freaking black panther bounce over their head, hopping like a kangaroo. With I think the claim behind it was that apparently in the mountains where this happened, there were a bunch of hippies, probably all stoned out of their minds, where they were raising a black panther, as they put it, so most likely a leopard, alongside a kangaroo, and apparently it had learned from the kangaroo how to hop like a kangaroo. To which I included it in the data set just to have, the sake of completeness, but I was sat there thinking they're stoned out of their mind, aren't they? With the others, right, there were only 3 signs that describe marsupial traits. So for me, it's like, if there is any truth to Phylacoleo still being alive, it's probably being lumped in with the big cats, because everything else describes something very feline. And I think the latest stuff in terms of reconstructions of Phylacoleo actually put it more so as I remember one YouTube channel putting it, a giant Tasmanian devil. And when you look at a Tassie devil and you look at, say, a leopard, there's a bit of a difference in terms of the build.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I find that's a bit hard to say, oh, look, it's Phylacoleo still alive. Someone actually wrote an entire book saying that Phylacoleo lives. That was actually the title, Phylacoleo Lives, with a giant exclamation mark at the end. I don't have that book yet, keyword yet, but when I do, it's definitely going to be an entertaining read, I reckon.
I was just going to say a second ago, when you were saying going out looking for them, maybe you don't need to go to North America at all. Maybe you'll find a mountain lion somewhere in Australia.
Well, that was the other thing too, like I pointed out, a lot of these sightings do actually describe a mountain lion-like animal.
Mm-hmm.
Like with, I think I told you about the book Savage Shadow, Search for the Australian Cougar. I'm pretty sure most of the sightings there were actually of cougars, mountain lions, whatever you want to call them, puma, panther, painter, whatever. Because there's 100-something different names for that bloody animal.
Yeah.
I remember also they did actually describe black animals. A bit of spoilers for the book, but they actually had a cougar hunter from Montana come in, because I think they said he had immigrated to Australia 6 years prior to this. His name is Bob Newman, and I think they said with it that they actually asked him about the black animals, and he said that he reckons those would probably be far more dangerous, because as he said, from the stuff of catching cougars in the US, from memory, I think he said that with them, you can just simply get a couple dogs and get them up a tree, and then from there you can just shoot it or try and get it in a bag when it tries to jump down. Right, so that's how you get rid of the cougars, but I think he said in response to the black animals that they probably turn and fight the dogs. I don't know how true that is, but I did find that interesting. They did actually note a little distinction there between the black animals and the cougars.
It was interesting. Should we move on from big cats, or is there any other part of it you want to go into, or?
I think we've mainly covered everything in terms of the big cat stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I will notice too, I am still working on the mosasaur video.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I ask, what's your current word count or page count for that mosasaur video?
Let me pull it up. You know it's bad when I have to say, let me pull it up. Okay, let's see. Now, immediately, this is... Actually, no, I'll just... Okay, just highlighting the main script itself, so I don't include all the different citations. God, there's 20 pages here. Just highlighting,
Wow.
highlighting. Okay. 7,897 words across 25 pages.
And it's not done yet, right?
No. No, it's not done at all.
What percentage would you say it is? Is it 50% done? Is it?
This is just the script. I've got several different sections on the script that I still need to write, so I'd say it's probably 40% done.
Holy moly.
Yeah, I will admit I've been thinking about it a fair bit here and there. One of the ones is the size of these animals, because I think you said in your video that the highest number you've seen is 18 meters for Mosasaurus. Your living mosasaur video?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think I left a comment on there saying that one book I have, Oceans of Kansas, they list that you'd probably find the largest these things got was 20 meters, which that's not really much of a difference. That's only 6 feet, 6'6", I think. But I think those really high numbers, they came from a 1967, um, I guess you could call it a paper, but it's really a book in itself because it's like 250 pages long. I think it's called Systematics and Morphology of American Mosasaurs by Dale Russell, who sadly passed away in 2020. And in there, now, from what I know, he didn't ever give an explanation for how he came up with this, but he worked out that the head to body ratio for mosasaurs was 1 to 10. So
This sounds really familiar. I think I might have actually referenced
yeah,
that paper.
yeah, right. So the skull is about a tenth the body length. So you've had some specimens found where they might have a jawbone that's like 170 centimeters long. So then you end up with a 17-meter long mosa. And from this, right, however, like I said, he didn't really give an explanation for how he came up with this. So for all you know, he might have just thought of this at random. But I think there was a... Pardon, just had to burp there. There was a... I think it was a specimen of prognathodon found in the early 2010s. And it actually had a head-to-body length ratio of like 1 to 6, 1 to 7. So going off of that, these animals were actually more like... For the largest ones, they were at most like 13 meters, according to what you will read online. Although, as I point out in the video script, right, I don't think you'll really care too much about me talking about this, but I'm 5'10", I think. I've done a little bit of growing, so I'm about 5'10" right now. I think the average in Australia is like in America, it's 5'9". Gecko, I think he said he's 6'2.5", so he's a bit taller than
Tall
me.
boy.
Yeah, very tall and skinny, I think. One of my friends in year 11, he's like 6'3", 6'3.5", and he's like 50% heavier than Gecko. Then you have Lizat, who you might remember from the taxidermy video, because we mentioned him here and there of like, do not send this to Lizat, followed up by Gecko just going, you know he's going to grab everything from this video, alright? He's... Well, I originally heard he was 6'8", then I hear he's 6'7", and then I hear he's 6'6", to the point that I remember Gecko just went to me, I don't know why he keeps degrading himself. Then
Is
I
he
think
shrinking?
Gecko... I don't know, but Gecko said to me later he ended up taking a tape measure to Lizat, and I think we worked out he was 6'6.5", nearly 6'7", which is, massive. And I think he said Lizat's dad is nearly that tall as well. Alright, so now obviously you can probably guess where I'm going with this. Robert Wadlow. Although, admittedly, I don't really consider Robert Wadlow to actually be valid because, from what I know, he had a cancer on his pituitary gland. That's why he ended up being like nearly 9 foot tall. And the same applies to a lot of those real big guys who are like 8 foot or more. Right? They just have a cancer on their pituitary gland, which causes an increase in growth hormone, which is why they end up being asked stuff like, "How's the weather up there?" Meanwhile, with
But they're
others
still
like,
not tall, though, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, it's like that's not really a natural growth for them. There was outside help in the form of cancer, if you could consider that help. But when it comes to like more natural stuff, like I said, Gecko, from what I know, he doesn't have a cancer or anything, so he's naturally 6'2". Lizat is naturally 6'6". Then you even have some strongmen out there like Brian Shaw and Halfor Bjornsson, who are like 6'8", 6'9". And I think the tallest bodybuilder in the world, the Dutch giant he's known as, he's like 7'2". So I think once I actually took Lizat's height and I actually applied that to like more so to see what's the difference in percentage wise between like being average like 6'9" and being that big. Wait, did I say 6'9"? I meant to say 5'9".
Yeah, 5'9", yeah.
But yeah, alright, so I took that and I think the percentage I got was like nearly, I can't remember right now, but then I actually took that and I applied it to the 13-meter length for, I think it was Tylosaurus. And I ended up with, I think it was 14.98 meters. So for me, it's like, assuming that 13 or 12 to 13 meters is the average, and then saying like the biggest they got is like this, well, the 6'6" equivalent of being their size. You're then looking at like 14 to 15 meters. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were actually some 15-meter mosas around. Admittedly, it is still one of those things where they probably would have been like Shaq. They are the exception, not the rule. But I do find it possible there could have been some 15-meter mosasaurs roaming about.
So I was way off with 18 meters then.
I mean, hey, it's still worth bringing up in terms of like the biggest estimates you get out there for these guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is like, yeah, it seems
Very
like the
generous.
more accurate stuff to go with in terms of like what you'll see most people cite is like 12 to 13 meters for the largest. I think you referenced this book, Princeton Field Guide to Mesozoic Sea Reptiles.
Yeah, I think I used that
Yeah.
one.
I think the largest they list there is 13 meters for Tylosaurus, which I think was also the heaviest they listed at 6.7 tons.
I think I remember
Admittedly, from what I know, when it comes to the size of these animals, the author, Gregory Poole, he's not the most trustworthy, but it's still worth like listing it off because I don't really find too many size estimates for those guys, so take it or leave it.
Cool.
So, yeah, that is one thing I do end up saying in the video of like there could have been some massive like 15-meter long mosas. Heck, I think I even read something saying there is actually a mosasaur on display that's 50 feet long, which is 15 meters. Although I do recall reading a book later talking about the same mosasaur, the bunker tylosaur, which I think you might also be familiar with. Where I think they actually listed something like 13 meters.
In the Kansas or University or something like that?
I think it's Kansas Museum, yeah. Kansas University Museum. Big boy. In all honesty, in terms of like fossil specimens I'd like to see the bunker specimen in person. I think I've actually given it the nickname Bunker Boy.
Big bunker boy.
Yeah, just real big, chunky boy. I think one book I have actually estimates it's around like 8 tons in terms of like the weight of this thing in real life. But I don't know how true that is, since it's a bit of an older book. It came out 21 years ago. But it's worth noting. Also, I think that 8 ton, it is US tons, which is like 2,000 pounds. Metric ton is like 2,240 pounds, so I think it's more like 7.2 metric tons.
Do you want to ask another question, Mika?
Do I? Oh, I guess just to pivot a little bit, if that's okay. We like to talk a lot about like media, how wildlife is represented in media. So do you have any favorite wildlife feature in media, such as a movie, a song, a TV, a video game, something that you would recommend to us?
I'm not really too sure. Not really in terms of portrayal or anything, but I'd say one you should check out is a documentary I found on YouTube. I could probably send it to you right now if I can find it. It's called The Hot-Blooded Dinosaurs. It's nearly 50 years old. It's from 1975. But the thing I liked about it is because it's from 1977. Okay. But one of the things I like about it is because it's so old, it's a bit of like a window into the past in a way, I guess you could call it. Like, I often get people end up saying to me, like, why are you citing that book? It's from 2016. It's outdated. Which sometimes annoys me because it's like 2016 isn't that far off.
It's not that bad, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with some of it, I can sort of see what you mean because, like, yeah, with stuff like paleontology, it can change a lot. But sometimes it is actually good to get a bit of a window into the past. So I actually have a lot of old books as well. All right. I'll send you some photos later so you could probably show these up on screen, Thomas. But in terms of like old books I have Wild Cats of the World by C.A.W. Guggisberg, I think his name is. That's from 1975. And for a while it was sort of like, I think, the definitive work on wildcats. Because that was like one of the really only like very comprehensive books on like all cat species, or at least the ones known at the time. I also have the book Dinosaurs, Spitfires, and Sea Dragons, which is from 1991. I have Encyclopedia of Dinosaurs from 1997, which is a compilation of I think it's 275 articles from 60 something different authors. But I also have the Dinosaur Heresies by Robert Bakker, one of the most influential and notable books on dinosaurs out there.
Did he write? Oh my god, how am I
Raptor
forgetting
Red.
the title? Raptor Red, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
he
the
wrote
same
that as
pen,
well.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think also, what other really old books do I have in my library right now that I have yet to read through? Or if I have, can't remember much. Oh, I have a book on Australian snakes from 1991. And now the reason why I bring up all that is because, like I said, I get a bit of a window into the past when it comes to some of that stuff, in terms of what was thought of at the time. I was thinking about this just earlier before you sent me the link to the call, but I remember with my Stegosaurus video, one thing I heard a lot was with Robert Bakker. He put out this little theory that Stegosaurus could actually fold its plates onto its side to act as armor. And I think the main citation they had for that I saw around was actually his book, The Dinosaur Heresies. So now, if I wanted to, if I were to say remake my Stegosaurus video, I could actually grab his book, flip to the index, find the parts on Stegosaurus, and actually read through and see, was this just a little bit of speculation he had to say hey, maybe dinosaurs did this? Or was this an actual serious theory he was thinking of at the time that might have been plausible? Just, right? Because sometimes I do think people tend to forget that. Sometimes it is actually good to sometimes dig around and find these older sources. Because then, again, you might end up finding some context that is missing, or
Yeah.
perhaps some further details that just actually make the theory a whole lot more interesting. And that's
Or you might.
also why I tend to use a lot of books as well, because they tend to be a lot more detailed than what I find online.
A lot of websites just. There's one website posts an article, and then 10 other websites just basically copy paste. And sometimes the
Yep.
original didn't even read the paper properly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I will admit, I tend to use a lot of news websites and secondary sources like that, but it's one of those things where I do want to in the future start using more primary stuff like studies, scientific papers, all that sort of stuff. Or if I do use anything that's considered more of, I guess, a secondary source, I end up using blogs from paleontologists mostly now. Because, well, I can actually get the thoughts of and opinions from an actual expert on the subject.
Right.
And I also follow Christ knows how many paleontologists on Twitter. I mean, hey, I think, what's his name? Darren Naish, who follows me surprisingly. I think he follows 11,000 people.
That's pretty cool.
I think I once
He
accidentally...
replies to you sometimes. I see you guys chatting
Yeah.
away. Your best friend, Darren Naish.
I remember when he followed me, I sent a screenshot of it to Gecko, and he goes no way. Nah, that could not have happened. It happened. Which immediately surprised me. I remember we
Do
also
you think
got
he
a laugh
watches your
out Wii Comet.
videos? Oh, sorry.
I don't think Darren Naish watches my videos.
Can I ask, do you have any pet peeves about wildlife media or wildlife videos on YouTube? Are there any things you really don't like seeing?
I think for me, one of the ones I really dislike, and I think you might have done this yourself in, I think, your mermaid video when I watched it last week. And that was one of the ones I really dislike, is when I see people bring up the scientific consensus on something. Because you might think, as an example, if, I don't know, if all the paleontologists in the world say dinosaurs are now birds, that therefore it must be true, the thing I find annoying about that is just because, say, 90% of experts agree that climate change is real and that it's a major threat, that doesn't really mean it's true, because, well, what's to say that they're only just following along one other expert who might have published a paper saying so, and what's to say that paper might not be flawed. So for all you know, next minute you have this full-on scientific consensus that climate change is this massive threat and we're all going to die in 2030 because global warming or giant snowstorm or whatever, because of one flawed paper someone published that everyone else decided to eat up and go like, look, it's true. And not just that, but science doesn't work off of politics like that, right? Politics is where, like, majority people say this, right? Like, we want Donald Trump as president. Okay, give us Donald Trump as president. Or Joe Biden. Or whatever other politician. But with the scientific consensus, that's political thinking, right? Like, you do actually want actual scientific methods. Like, if the paper actually comes out saying that climate change is real and actually has methods that when you test it, they actually, like, you actually see it say that climate change is happening, then okay, climate change is happening. I'm not saying that means I'm like some big disbeliever in climate change. I'm just saying it's like,
just an example.
Just because majority experts say that doesn't mean it's true.
But if those, I see what you're saying. Like, I guess it's whether they say it's a fallacy to appeal to authority. But what if you're looking not only at the experts but like at their work? So it's like 1,000 experts have published 1,000 different peer-reviewed papers saying this thing. Then isn't it like, wouldn't that be more, that scientific consensus is more close to truth rather than pursuing a political agenda?
I can sort of see where you're going with that, but still for me it's like, when most people go like, well, think about it, they say like, X amount of scientists believe. It's not like saying X amount of scientists have published this many papers that say that therefore climate change is real. But I do find that to be a bit more credible than just saying they believe it to be the case. Because think about it, you've had how many people say that religion is nothing more than a fairy tale? I know that's getting a bit more political, right? But again, it's like you have faith in it. Right? Like I could say right now, I believe unicorns exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I could say to you right now that like 99% of the experts believe unicorns exist. Does that mean they exist?
But if they're an expert in the field, wouldn't they have a reason for believing in something? If they're like good at their job, like if 99% of biologists came out and said unicorns exist, would they do that just for fun? You know what I mean?
Again,
well, maybe I'm
like
wrong. Sorry if I sound defensive. I'm just trying to drill down.
Again,
I probably did say something stupid.
Again, like I said, like what's to say that with a lot of those experts where they were to say like, I don't know, Allosaurus used its head like a hatchet to kill prey, right? What's to say that they're not just going off of like one scientific study that might have flaws? Well, yeah, I think I sent you a bunch of stuff on lion weight that a friend of mine has, because I know a couple people who are really into the lion versus tiger stuff, and if you want to find stuff on weight of those two cats, look for lion versus tiger stuff, because that's where you get a lot of stuff on the weight, because you then have people arguing which one's bigger. So then they go around like asking wildlife parks and stuff like that for the data on the weight of their animals. And according to one of my friends, there's been quite a few lions over 300 kilo. Admittedly, this guy's on the lion side, so he might be a little biased. Take that into account. Not meaning to sound rude to him. I feel like he's probably going to kill me after this. But I think he's only listed off to me like one tiger that was over 300. But he said it had a full belly, and that's typically around 30 kilos extra weight. So it was actually like 290 kilo.
I would like to look into it, because that's actually a good example of where, like, if you look on websites, or if you're a fool like me and say common consensus or whatever, they'll always say tigers are bigger. But from assuming what you're saying is accurate, no offense to you or your friend, like just, I haven't looked into it, but let's say if that is accurate, then lions should be bigger, right?
It's a little complex, just from what I've also read myself, and then the conversations I've had with my friend. His name's Nighty. He's pretty cool. As I remember one person putting it to me, he's scarily chill. But I remember, right, you have all these different populations of lions and tigers. Like, I think there's 6
Yeah.
living subspecies of tiger. I can't remember all of them, but, like, the most notable 2 here, Siberian tiger and Bengal tiger.
Yeah.
And then you also have 2 living subspecies of lion. Now, Nighty, to say the least, despises the term Asiatic and African lion. Like, he does not like them at all. To a point that I've heard him go on occasion whenever I send him a video and they say African lion in the video, he'll go like, "They said the A word, Calvin. They said the A word." Like, he thinks it's some racial slur or something.
He wants to go
But,
by subspecies, is it? Like,
yeah, right? Because
okay.
with the subspecies and all that, you have 2 subspecies. There's Panthera leo-melanochita, which lives south of the Sahara Desert. Then you have up north of the Sahara Desert in Africa, and also then in Asia, in India, in the Gir Forest, Panthera leo. The Asiatic ones were originally called Panthera leo persica, but no, they are actually the same subspecies as the ones in northern Africa. So it means that when you say African lion, you're actually referring to 2 subspecies. So he actually prefers using the term northern lion for the ones north of the Sahara, and then southern lion for the Melanochita subspecies. And I remember asking him about like the sizes of all these different subspecies, and I think he said to me, southern lions, as he calls them, are on average 198 kilos for males. Then I think he said to me, Siberian tigers, from what he's found, are 196.4 kilos. So that's about 1.5 kilos difference in size. So I nearly called it an African lion. The southern lion is just like a tad bit bigger. I think scientifically this would be considered to be like a negligible difference. Meanwhile, Bengal tiger, I think he said, is the largest living cat at 207 on average. 207 kilos, so that's like, I think, nearly 500 pound. No, that's like 450 pound, but either way, like, so, but the other thing is that you do have all those other smaller subspecies. So I think northern lions are like 150 on average, a lot smaller than the southern. Then you also have the Javan tiger, I think it is. No, that's the extinct one. What am I thinking of? Sumatran tiger, that's the one I'm thinking of. There are 110, I think he said to me once. Or at least I came across a weight table in a Discord server he has, which has a lot of data on the weight of these animals. Right, so I think he said to me that when you actually average out the sizes across all the subspecies, tigers, according to him, are 164 kilos on average for males. Lions, however, are 182. So if you're going on the subspecies by subspecies category, the 2 largest, or the 3 largest cats goes in order 196 for Siberian, 198 for southern lion, and then Bengal tiger at 207 kilos. But if you're going by averaged across the entire species, lions win out by nearly 20 kilos. And from there, I think also lions have a slightly larger maximum size, possibly, because as I said, you've had several lions over 300 kilos. But there is a little catch there, and that's that I think he said with one of them, a 310 kilo lion recorded, they didn't list whether or not it had an empty belly, so there's the potential it had a full stomach, which could mean it had as much as 30 kilos worth of food in it, so that would drop it to 280. But there's also a 330 kilo lion recorded, which from what I know is a bit more dubious, because apparently one of the wildlife managers at the park this was recorded didn't recall the weighing of an animal that big. But assuming that it also had an empty belly, well, assuming it had a full belly, I mean, that would put it at 300 kilos, making it just a little bigger than that tiger. So, potentially speaking, tigers are actually smaller, maximum size-wise, than lions. So it is one of those things where it's like, depending on how you want to define which is bigger, like are you talking max size, largest subspecies, or largest in terms of the species average, it could go either way when it comes to tigers and lions.
Yeah, it's not really a clean-cut answer, I suppose. I'm sorry to do this to you, but it's a little over 4 a.m. where I am, so we might wrap it up
Oh,
there if
wow.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Before we do you want to tell people where they can find you online, where they can follow you and all that?
I'm on Twitter as, I think, at Calvin The Carno, last I checked. Or, as said earlier, look me up as Star Naked. Then I just realised I have my oh my god, I'm not going to list off my birthday that I put on my Twitter account. Let's say it's very inappropriate. Also on YouTube as just Calvin The Carnotaurus. I'm also on Discord as Calvin The Carno. I used to have a Discord server, but I'm not really running it anymore. And yeah, that's about it.
Cool.
Anyway?
If you send me all the links, I'll try and put the links below the video as well. So.
Yeah, I think I'll just send you the Twitter and YouTube.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for talking to us.
Yeah, thank
You're welcome.